For those who are not fully familiar with the work of WIPO, WIPO is the Global Forum for Intellectual Property Services, Policy, Information and Cooperation. We are a self-funding agency of the United Nations with 192 member states. Our mission is to lead the development of a balanced and effective international intellectual property system that enables innovation and creativity for the benefit of all. Intellectual property is key in the innovation ecosystem. It spurs innovation and creativity by setting incentives for women and men alike to unleash the infinite potential of their powerful minds in finding solutions that improve the quality of human lives, but also solutions that will help the international community to deliver on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. Innovation, as you all know, is key, a key cross-cutting enabler for most of the Sustainable Development Goals. WIPO's work is delivered through main areas of action. The first is the development of international law in the field of intellectual property to respond to new challenges and priorities as defined by our member states, and to constantly ensure its relevance to technological advancements as well as other advancements. Secondly, the provision of premier global intellectual property services to facilitate the granting and the protection of IP titles in more than one jurisdiction. Those services that we render essentially to the private sector are the source of the income of the organization. A third main area of work at WIPO is the development cooperation, through which we deliver technical assistance programs to developing and least developed countries to assist them in strengthening their technical and legal infrastructures and framework for the protection and management of intellectual property in support of innovation and creativity development and commercialization. It's in relation to this last area of work that the global infrastructure sector has is a key sector actually in the organization that helps countries build their innovation capacity. This sector delivers its program through a multi-stakeholder approach, cooperating and engaging with intellectual property officers, users, and other stakeholders to develop shared IP tools, services, standards, databases, and platforms. Their program is designed to help IP institutions collaborate more effectively and deliver more efficient services to their users, as well as enabling innovators and information seekers worldwide to freely access the knowledge contained in the IP system. The approach to building global technical infrastructure includes the development and sharing of global IP databases and other digital IP information, patent information and other IP information resources, assisting countries in setting up technological information support centers known as TISCs, and also creating a network of those TISCs in developing countries to exchange experiences and practices, and through that facilitate South-South cooperation, providing business solutions to support IP office functions. And another area that is very topical, a program of work in the field of artificial intelligence and new technologies. As you will be hearing a lot about patents, at least from the intervention that will be delivered by WIPO, for those that are not fully familiar with the functioning of the patent system, patents are the IP titles that are granted for the protection of an invention. It's a social contract between a government authority, usually the Intellectual Property Office, and an inventor, through which, based on whether the invention meets the patentability criteria, an inventor would be granted an exclusive right over a certain period of time, and a monopoly right over his invention to exploit it over a certain period of time, which is usually, or at least in most countries, is a period of 20 years. This social contract, or this exclusive right, it is granted against a full disclosure of the specifications, the technical specification of an invention. This public disclosure of the technical specification of an invention is is not just national, it's a global disclosure, like you will be hearing from our colleague from WIPO. And actually, this patents, as such, they contain a wealth of technological information that are very important for a number of reasons, but most importantly because through those patents, inventors are able to, or innovators are able to know the exact state of the art of technologies in a particular field, but also those information are very important because they feed the innovation process. They feed the R&D process, which in turn are translated into new innovations that come into existence. I will not elaborate more on this because we have two distinguished speakers we are delighted to have among us. On my left, Stephanie Rambler, whom I will introduce more just before her intervention, and on my right we have our colleague, my dear and esteemed colleague, Mr. Alejandro Roca Campagna. Mr. Roca Campagna is, we will start with his intervention that will focus on the WIPO knowledge networks. And that's why I will introduce you first, Alejandro, if I may. He's a senior director at the global infrastructure sector. He has vested some 30 years of his professional career assisting developing countries building their technical and legal regimes and infrastructures to build their local innovation and creative capacities. Prior to his current functions, he was the director of the WIPO Regional Bureau for Latin America and the Caribbean, where for some 20 years he engaged with ministries in charge of science, technology, and innovation, as well as ministries of culture and information to support their efforts in building effective and efficient intellectual property systems to serve their development policies and strategies. In this capacity, his work was particularly key in assisting countries in the region in implementing their obligations under the TRIPS agreement to facilitate their participation in the multilateral trading system. As you will recall, following the establishment of the WTO and the adoption, among other trade agreements, the TRIPS agreement, developing countries that were party of the GATT had a transition period to 2000 to bring their regimes in conformity with TRIPS. While other countries that were not party to the GATT, they were seeking to join the WTO and had to bring or set up IP systems that were compliant with the TRIPS agreement. For the last 10 years, Alejandro has been in charge of the implementation of the WIPO TISC program, which is the Innovation Support Centers, and other development agenda projects that were agreed by our member states. More recently, he also oversaw the production of a first flagship WIPO Trends report on artificial intelligence technologies. Mr. Roca Campagna holds a degree in economics with specialization in international economic relations from the Moscow State Institute of International Relations. Prior to joining WIPO, he was the head of international cooperation in the Cuban Industrial Property Office. And actually, he is a very good representation of a commitment to multilingualism because he is fluent, other than Spanish, in English, French, Russian, and Italian. On this, I will give you the floor, Alejandro, for your presentation on the WIPO knowledge platforms. And you will have, I don't have my wall here, you will have some 25 minutes.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you, everybody, for attending this side event. In fact, we are very engaged in building this, what we call WIPO knowledge platform. And before I start my actual presentation, I would like to, so I will very quickly go through an overview of the platform, what we have, which databases we have been building up, what are these program, WIPO's program for the establishment of technology and innovation support centers network, what do we do, and in fact, what role do different national partners plays with us. Before I start, I would like to put a very 1 minute.
10 years ago, WIPO began building an infrastructure to better process and manage intellectual property. We started by converting 120 years of innovation history from paper to data. We also helped many national IP offices to digitize their work. Next, we enabled electronic filing of patents, trademarks, and designs. Our engineers built databases and tools, sorting and checking data. Partners joined our network, sharing their content. We created online services. Data became information. Asian languages expanded in the innovation landscape. So our language experts and engineers designed translation tools using artificial intelligence. But we didn't stop there. To navigate the complexity, WIPO's specialists use data analytics. They create market intelligence and financial insights. Information becomes knowledge. Our infrastructure is now data, information, and knowledge. We call it the WIPO Knowledge Network. It guides policymakers and innovators across the globe in shaping the future.
So sorry for this decreasing in volume, but here this very short video, in a very brief way, indicates our strategy. Our strategy has been, from the very beginning, to convert data into information and then to create tools to convert this information into knowledge. Which data do we create? As you know, WIPO is responsible for the administration of global protection system. If you want to protect your technical solution or your trademark or your industrial design or your appellation of origins, we administer at international level international treaties that regulate and establish cooperation amongst member states in the field of every modality. And according to those treaties, which are in a way indicated in the intellectual property framework, member states have the obligation to share national data with us. We convert all this data into information by creating databases that are completely free of charge. We call it our public knowledge good, are free of charge, and these databases are established and built in all the fields of IP, in the field of patents, and we have here patent scope. For that, as stated in the video, we have to convert 130 years of papers into digital information. But it's not only in the field of patents and technology, it's also in the field of trademarks, which will protect the distinctive character of a brand and a product, which serve to distinguish a product in a particular market from other similar products. But we also do that in the field of industrial designs. Industrial designs is the IP title that protects the external appearance, the external form of your product. By using some specific tools, which are mainly tools targeting the analysis of this information in the field of patent, trademarks, industrial design, and by providing specific added value services, we convert this information, and of course some publications also, we convert this information into knowledge by also creating several specific toolkits, manuals, guides. We have some analytical tools. We have some other publications in the field of the economics of innovation and IP, like the Global Innovation Index that was launched for the first time in 2014, and since that date we have been launching and updating this Global Innovation Index every year. WIPO is a technological organization. We have very much engaged in what we call digital transformation inside the Secretariat, but also helping member states, in particular Intellectual Property Office, automate and digitally transform their business operations for the administration of IP titles. And since 2004, for example, we have been pioneer in using open source technologies to build a very large-scale search system, because it's not enough to have the data, to have the information. You have also to build tools and different engine, search engine, in order to facilitate access and exploitation of that information. We have been using natural language processing techniques that have been completed by developing a specific WIPO interpretation or translation tools based on artificial intelligence, in particular neural networks. And we have also been using our machine learning applications for text mining in order to help users to find what they are looking for, because looking into those patent databases is not just Googling one or two words. You should know how to look at it. These patent databases nowadays, they comprise 74 million patents, the global patent scope database, almost 38 million for the global brand database, 10.4 million for design. So in total, we are dealing with almost 130 million titles, patents, trademarks, and designs. And of course, in order to make the use of those technologies very, very available and affordable and friendly to use, we have been providing this kind of information. In the field of patents, you have to use these databases if you want to make sure that your idea, your technology is new. If you want to protect this idea or this technology in a different territory, in a different jurisdiction, you should be sure that while protecting this technology, you are not going to infringe third parties' rights already protected in that jurisdiction. So the use of these databases become strategically very important, even if we take into account that sometimes developing countries are in the process of engaging in the transfer of technology and the commercialization of different innovation. They should be aware of the existence of third-party intellectual property rights in order for not to be accused of violating other rights. So this is the same, it is with patent, but the same thing happen with trademarks and global design database. Sometimes it's very abstract, very difficult to realize why this patent search is very important, and it's very important because if the governments, they are allotting public resources in the development of new research results, they should know what already exists in order not to waste time, efforts, and money in developing, in reinventing the wheel. So before the startup of an investment program or before starting up the implementation of an innovation program or a research and development program, you have to consult patent databases. Patent databases are a very particular way of communicating to the public because of what my colleague Ola has explained before, a very particular way to communicating to the public what is available in the field of science and technology, what is available, what are the new solutions to the technical problems, and what is the status on the art in all the fields of technology. Up to 80% of current technological knowledge is only found in patent documents. It's only found in patent documents. And the characteristics of patent documents are such that they are very well systematized, they follow a particular standards, they have very defined important parts. You have the bibliographic data, you have the specification, and then you have the claims, which is what defines the technical and legal scope of what you would like to protect. The patent system, as my colleague has explained, has two main functions. On one side is protection, but on the other side is disclosure. So the patent system is an opportunity for technological learning because you can be aware of the latest advances in science and technology, because for a patent to be granted by the states, by the government institution, it has to comply with three main conditions. It has to be new at the international level, it has to have industrial applicability, has to be successfully applied in industry, and it has to be non-obvious for an expert which average knowledge in the field, meaning that it has to display some kind of inventive step. So it's important because that's why this patent information is used in all the innovation process during the whole cycle of innovation, from the research and development, from the idea to the research and development, to the product design, to the production, to the implementation of the research result, up to the commercialization. And in this last part, commercialization, patent information is very important in order to know if we have the freedom to operate in other markets, if by exporting or commercializing some products to other territories, I'm going to infringe on somebody else's patent. But it's important to know what my competitors are doing. There are other IP rights that can serve me in my purpose of further developing the product so I can enter in contact with the holders of those IP rights and negotiate technology licensing cooperation agreements. I am not going to stop myself in these slides, but this is the interface of our WIPO's patent scope database, and for example, you can search by many combinations, by the inventor's name, by the data of filing of the application, by the data of the publication, by different numbers. Here we are searching about entering the international patent classification symbol. There is this IPC, International Patent Classification, which has been established, and it gives a classification symbol to every patent that is being filed. And you can search by this classification symbol, and you can see that you can find above 7,000 results in the database, and this classification symbol relates to devices for producing mechanical power from solar energy. So you can have access to the abstract, you can have access to the drawing, you can have access to the claims, which is the part of the patent application that define the legal and technical scope of protection, is what the inventor really wants to protect. But making use of the databases gives you the possibility also to do some analysis. You can see which are the countries in which this type of application are being filed, and if in those countries you can observe a high volume of filing, it means that on those markets there is a lot going on in the field of commercialization of this kind of technical solution, because you don't protect for the sake of protecting, for the sake of having a title, a patent. You protect because after that you are going to commercialize, or you are going to negotiate a license or a technology agreement. So you can see the countries of first filing, you can see the classification, you can see the inventors, who is filing, which are the companies filing. Remember that I say that you can study and you can follow what your competitors are doing in a particular market. So if you see that there is an increased volume of patent application from one of your competitors in a particular territory, it means that this firm is really investing on that territory. We have other tools together with patent scope that, as I said before, that facilitate the access to this information. And the first one is WIPO Translate. What these translation tools has become so important. If you take into account that almost 60 to 70% of the global knowledge is producing languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Russian, in difficult language, and in order to have access to those languages, you have to have translation tools, meaning very powerful tools that will allow you to consult those kind of patent application. But we have also what we call this cross-lingual information retrieval. You don't know Chinese, you have the database of China for utility models, 5 million utility models. You don't know how to search in that database. We have a tool that will translate the keywords you put in English. We can translate it in Chinese, but not only in Chinese, in 11 different languages. So it will give you the possibility with just one click to have access to this information. For example, here in my example, if we put machine learning, we have 11 results. If we translate this machine learning, which is my keywords, into all these languages, you can see that we get 28,000 results. So it's very important, very powerful tool. I'm going very, very quickly because we are running short of time. I wanted to say that this WIPO Translate tool is being used currently by many UN agencies. It's being used by IMO, it's being used by WTO, by ITU, by OECD, by the World WMO, and also by the United Nations Secretariat, the ILO. So we are making available the tool free of charge for other UN organizations, and the tool has so far has been meeting very high standard of precision and completeness. We also have the same, we are also using other applications in the field of artificial intelligence, for example, to search the image or the logotype, the figurative elements of trademarks, and in that relation, you can, for example, include in the database a concept, and using, let's see this short video, using very specific techniques of computer vision and image recognition, you can have access to similar logotypes or images, so you can decide whether this design you are proposing for your brand is new or not. I am not going to stop in all this. It's the presentation is available for whoever wants to use it. We have all other multi-stakeholder platforms like WIPO Green and WIPO Research, which are, for example, a matchmaking platform and marketplace for sustainable technology, which has been using very successfully by member states, and it's freely accessible offers of new products, needs for products, and connecting technology providers and seekers, in the case of WIPO Green, in the field of green technologies. But we have also been collaborating with many institutions around the world in providing the development of, in facilitating the development of new medicine and technologies in the fight against neglected tropical diseases, malaria and tuberculosis, by sharing IP, knowledge and know-how. And finally, I have still 5 minutes. Finally, I would like to refer to a program we have, which is the establishment of Technology and Innovation Support Centers, TISC, in developing countries and LDCs. which main objectives or purpose is to help those developing countries, but not only developing countries, all member states, because, for example, Russia is taking part in this program, has a very huge network of these discs all over the Russian territory, 156 technology and information support centers being created with the help of WIPO. But we have been working with 78 countries, and so far we have a directory of those centers. In January 2019, we have 750 centers registered in our directory, coming from these 78 national projects, 78 national networks. Those centers has been attending annually above 70,000 inquiries in relation to IP titles, how to protect your technical solution, how to protect your trademark, which strategies can be used in order to commercialize or in order to pursue the legal prosecution of your new technical solution. This is the breakdown by regions. I always put the example of Morocco, the red of Morocco, which was one of the first countries that acceded to our program. Morocco has 54 centers across the country, and those centers can be hosted by public or private universities, research and development centers, incubators, chambers of commerce and industry, technological parks, and of course we have, for each national network, we have a focal point. What we do mainly, networking, training and resources. We provide the training for the staff of those centers, training in, this is a TISC directory I was talking about, training in 4 main areas. First, access and analysis of information. Second, how to draft a patent application. Third, to commercialize or transfer technology. And fourth, how to manage the intangible assets of your institution. Those are the 4 main areas of training. And for that, we have various ways. We have our ETIS platform, but we have our on-site training, and we have distance learning training offered by the Academy, the webinars that we do on specific programs, and we also are very actively engaged in the preparation of content, training content, and training resources for this. For example, this is an electronic tutorial on patents and patent information, how to look for patents, and it's translated into all languages: English, Spanish, French, Russian, and now we are translating it into Chinese and Arabic. Then we have been also implementing other projects, for example, patents and the public domain. You know that the patents has a territorial character. If a patent is not registered in a specific territory, anybody from this territory can consult the patent, the application, and can use this application freely. So we have been teaching those centers how to identify and how to use those patents that have been falling in the public domain. And last but not least, we have been developing specific tools in order for patent analytics, for the preparation of these patent landscape reports in specific areas. We have free of charge these guidelines for a manual for patent analytics, how to analyze patents, how to convert this information into knowledge and develop the trends. Which are the countries of first filing, which are the markets, which are the firms, the universities that are working in a specific technological field. And we have a lot of material. These are some figures about our activities so far. For the last 9 years, we have trained above 10,000 people participating in the framework of the establishment of this Technology Innovation Support Center, but we have been also entering in specific partnerships with, for example, the publishers of scientific and technical papers. You know that in order to access a scientific and technical paper, it's very, very expensive. Sometimes if you want to download an article, it can cost you $50, just one article. So we have been securing for developing countries in negotiation with the publishers a very low cost or free of charge access to all these scientific publications in the field of applied physics, engineering, chemistry, traditional knowledge, and we have been partnering with over 100 major publishers. WIPO is also part of the Research for Life Consortium, together with WHO, FAO, and the UNEP, United Nations Programme on Environment, and WIPO, which provide this kind of access to scientific and technical papers. I think this is the most important. I am available to answer any specific question you may have, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, for this comprehensive overview of WIPO's knowledge platforms. Sure. Yeah. All right. We can take your question while Stephanie prepares for presentation. Yes, please go ahead.
I'd like to. You mentioned about intangible assets, and we have in Ukraine, for example, some experience in protecting intangible assets via blockchain technology to put them into, for example, I don't know, for instance, Ethereum. Would you mind if I ask you what experience in the worldwide do you have, or your organization, in this protecting or spreading this knowledge about how to protect and how to spread this knowledge in particular IP area? Thank you.
It's a very good question. Last week, we have organized in WIPO the first conference, international conference on the use of blockchain in order to protect IP in general. How we can use blockchains to protect IP. Why we are doing that? Because member states already mandated WIPO to develop an international standard on the use of blockchain to protect several areas. We are deciding which one. This is something very new. This is something that not all the countries have been using it, but the technology has very good promises, and we are, just as we say, tasting the waters, no? But for sure, this is something that has been decided. WIPO, in 2 years' time, has to come up with an international standard on the use of blockchain for the protection of IP. For the time being, WIPO itself, the Secretariat, is using or is engaged in a project to use the blockchain as a timestamp technology. You know, timestamp is very relevant in the field of IP rights, and to be able to, because it's first come, first serve base. So sometimes there are really some doubts about the time in which this technology, this right has been registered, but also as a kind of certified digital copy of other documents.
Like digital signature.
Exactly. Digital signature that, for example, you know that you have the right to, if you want to protect in several countries, you have 1 year to use the date of the first country. You want to protect, for example, in Ukraine, in Japan, in Mexico, you protect in Ukraine in February, but you have 1 year to use the date of February to protect in other countries. So it's, but for that you have to present an official certification, digital certification, that you have protected in Ukraine in February, in order for, you see, because in the meantime there can be many others that could have come and protected, but you have the presence. So this is what we are doing. It's very early still, but we have been identifying several areas in which we could advantageously use blockchain technology to...
So we are on the right way, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. I see there's another question, but if you allow me, maybe we can take, listen to our next speaker, and then we can take the rest of the questions after her intervention. And with that, I invite our next speaker, but first I will introduce her. I'm very pleased to introduce Stephanie Rambler. Stephanie is a Sustainable Development Officer in the Division for Sustainable Development. Her current functions focus on advancing the science policy interface as part of the Global Sustainable Development Report support team, and promoting science, technology, and innovation for the SDG. Stephanie is a key member of the fantastic team behind the organization of the STI Forum. And we were very pleased that she accepted to talk to us a little bit, or to update us on the state of development of the online platform. As you know, the 2030 agenda launched under the Technology Facilitation Mechanism, and one of the work streams of the TFM is actually the setting up of an online platform that would act more as a portal to access various platforms that exist and that would support the development of science, technology, and innovation for the SDGs. So with that, Stephanie, shall I, what, you need 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
10 is, yeah, I'll be fast.
All right, okay, sure. All right, please.
Thank you so much, Ola. And thank you all for coming. I know there are a lot of different things going on in the lunch hour, so I'm happy to see you all. As Ola mentioned, I will talk briefly about the online platform. And if you've been in the forum session, you will have heard the co-chairs talk about this. It's one of the mandated elements, as Ola said, of the Technology Facilitation Mechanism. And the Technology Facilitation Mechanism, or the TFM, was originally introduced in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, so it's part of this overall framework for implementation, the means of implementation that is part of the financing for development world, and then it was reaffirmed and fleshed out further in the 2030 Agenda, again as a key part of the means of implementation, so how to actually make this agenda a reality. I actually brought the agenda because it helps me as we're trying to develop this online platform further and to give it life and push it out into the world. It's good to remember what the member states wanted, and they called for a comprehensive mapping of and gateway to information on existing science, technology, and innovation initiatives, mechanisms, and programs within and beyond the and the key role is to facilitate access to all of this information and resources that are already available. And actually, it's very appropriate that I come after my colleague Alejandro from WIPO, because those sorts of resources that he described are exactly the kinds that we want to make sure that different kinds of users know about and have access to and have an easy way for reaching these different kinds of resources. So that was a perfect illustration of what I hope the role of our online platform can eventually be. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the users, because I'm a little bit red-faced, but last year I think we had a similar event, and we talked about the online platform, and it still isn't launched. So, and I want to explain the reason why, and the reason is that we really want to make sure that we're finding the right users and that we're shaping this in a way that's going to actually make a difference on the ground to people who would need these resources. And so we're kind of holding back a little bit and consulting with different types of users, having workshops around the world, and we're going to continue having those consultations so that we can make sure that the platform is reaching the right kinds of people and is shaped in the right way to be useful for them. So these are the kinds of questions that we hope it will answer. If a fish farmer can find the technology to upgrade her business, I say her business, because I would like to be a fish farmer, actually. So it's, can a technology transfer expert find counterparts abroad? And so this is emphasizing the fact that this is going to be a tool that is useful in a national setting and in a subnational setting, but also that will create links globally so that small business owners, entrepreneurs, innovators, even in a small town, can find resources and make networks with peers around the world. Similarly, if a person who's a small business could try to commercialize or scale up, we hope that this platform will be useful for that person. Also finding publications. Alejandro mentioned the importance of making publications, scientific literature accessible to people in developing countries. The price is often exorbitant and a barrier, and we want to make sure that we can improve that access. So we hope that will be another role for this platform. And then even in a room like this, policymakers who can make connections with other policymakers who are working on science technology issues, who are shaping roadmaps, which I know another room at this time is discussing roadmaps for science technology, how those actors and practitioners and policymakers can connect in an online space. And connecting again, I'm just going to go through these. I want to get to the demonstration and some of the what we're hoping will be the value added of this. I don't know if I'll actually demonstrate this. I think maybe I'll just talk about it since we only have a few more minutes. So this is basically what we're hoping that the platform will bring. Just a range of resources from trainings, publications, resources for technology transfer, and both in the online virtual world, but also in offline resources, kind of like the centers that you were describing. If we could connect people with those sorts of resources, then we would feel like we were doing our job. And I think the best way to show you is actually to try to demonstrate it. So I'm going to see if it will work. Just so you can get a sense. Let's see if it, yeah. So is it showing? It may not be. It's not, okay. Let's see. Demo, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So I think I'll go back to the slideshow. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are in the process, and I'll describe what you would have seen if we could have done the search. Right now, we have started making partnerships with different entities. You can see the logos here. There are UN entities and outside of the UN, including the Enterprise Europe Network, World Bank, WIPO match. I don't think we're actually linked with the patent databases that you described, but I think it would be actually a nice fit. So I hope that we can make that connection. And this is just a partial list. We're starting to create these partnerships, and we hope to get more. Actually, at the forum here, we were talking to some of the young innovators. I don't know if you've gotten to see the exhibit in the lobby, but one in particular was exactly the kind of partner at the national level who's not part of the UN family, but she is working on providing legal services to small businesses in Nigeria. And she has a network of 7,000 business people in Nigeria, and they are coming to her for help in navigating the legal not patents probably, but in terms of registering their business in their city municipal level or national level, and also, for agriculture or food production companies, helping them navigate the regulations, quality control, and things like that. So a lot of really useful hands-on services, and that would be exactly the kind of national partner that we would hope to be able to connect with. It would be important to. One of the values, I would say, of our platform is the UN name, and it's so we're kind of, rather than just Googling what's a good service in Nigeria to help me with my legal questions, if someone looking for that kind of service could come through our portal, they would be able to have a little bit of the UN sense of security, that there's some quality control and checking, and we kind of put our reputation on the line to connect with these partners. So I think that would offer us a measure of confidence to the potential users. I think I may just stop now and have a discussion. Do you think that makes sense? Because I think, as you can tell, this is a work in progress. It's a search engine, as it is now, that is connected to these networks of the different partners here. And so it's a portal, as I said, to the kinds of services that are provided by WIPO and other partners. So if you have questions, and maybe while the questions, I could try to see if the demo will work if I do a different, get it out of PowerPoint or something.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Actually, I liked the questions that you posed to kind of demonstrate, what can be accessible through your portal. And I'm also happy to note that some of our platforms at WIPO can respond to at least 2 or 3 of the questions that you had on your slides. I will maybe give the floor to the distinguished delegate from Japan. I believe he had a question. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, Alejandra and Stephanie, for your informative briefing. Maybe let me start by paying my respect to Alejandra, your 30 years of experience in this world or field, probably when I was my daughter's age. I have 2 questions on your briefing, and the first one is, would you elaborate a bit more on the difference between your entire search system and WIPO Green and WIPO Research? But as I see, those are, in nature they are searching system, but as I understand, the latter, the latter will be dedicated to mainly for the development cooperation. So I wish to know how different and how the latter works for the international cooperation.
Yeah.
And the second question is just simple. Simply, I like to know, how many people are working for TISC, and what I think you just touched upon the achievement of TISC in your presentation, but it went a bit too fast for me. So would you just elaborate more on this side? Like how many conferences or how what kind of outcome you made on this effort. And I also have I also have question, Stephanie, on your point. I would, as I have been working in the area of development for my mission for 3 years, and I several times I heard the name of TFM, but I was still not sure the nature of this mechanism. Is it simply that the cooperation between different agency or programs, including DESA, or are there any people dedicated to work for this mechanism, or as an initial, you already showed database or searching system or online platform or whatever, but I was not sure who is working for that and who can how people in especially developing countries or people in need can ask for support or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Alejandro, would you like to start?
Yeah. So thank you very much for your questions. First of all, WIPO Green. WIPO Green is an interactive marketplace for seekers and providing of green technologies. And for that, we have built a database which is breakdown in different main fields for the ones looking for a particular technology and for firms offering their technology in this marketplace. And we have building and construction, we have green products, pollution and waste, transportation, alternative sources of energy, farming, forestry, water, etc. And what the platform helps facilitate is this kind of matchmaking, but then those are, it can be private or public entities. The platform kind of joins the providers and seekers, and then they have to negotiate between them the terms and conditions of this transfer of technology or the license, the possible use of this technology for specific countries. I know that, for example, we have very successful cases of companies that in developing, least developed countries has been providing this technology for free. The use of, have been authorizing the use of this technology for free. The WIPO, and I left also a publication there. We have led some publication. We have also developed what we call IPC Green Inventory, which main purpose is to help the users identify in the international patent classifications which are the IPC symbols that relates to the green technologies. So they don't have to look for the whole IP classification and determine which are the symbols, because sometimes is, in particular, in patent databases, you have to search using a combination of keywords and IPC symbols. Otherwise, you are not, your recall will be kind of not very good. Then we have WIPO research. WIPO research is kind of a different platform, and in that platform, all the institutions that want to participate, they are also, one can break them down in providers and cooperating institutions. So, but it's only in the field of fight against neglected tropical diseases and malaria and tuberculosis. So the institutions that are providing such kind of knowledge, they are providing not only the patent as such, because the patent is already published. They are providing more than the patents. They are providing all the know-how that goes together with the development of a new pharmaceutical component, product. They are providing the information, scientific information of lab entries for scientists that work in the development of that molecule. They are providing know-how about the different processes, in particular as far as biotechnology is concerned. They are providing more than patent information. And again, it's a matter of those parties to negotiate the use, always bearing in mind that this is in order to promote the development, so the conditions for using of these, let's say, intangible assets, perhaps they are protected or not. Some of them are not protected on purpose. They are maintained in secret, okay? Some of them, yes. The use of these intangible assets, it's intended to promote the development of new technologies, new solutions in the field of NTDs, malaria, and tuberculosis. So that's why in the database there is this tab, Get Involved, and you can participate as a providing institution. You have things that you want to share, and as a institution that wants to cooperate and is ready to receive. And in fact, we have already as a black box of this platform is the database with the list of assets that are available for licensing, including compounds, enabling technologies, know-how, etc., etc., etc. And finally, to reply to your last question regarding which is the impact that we have had so far with the TISC project. So, first of all, we have been noting in many of the 78 countries an increase in the protection of patent application. So people are using the program to protect their innovation activity. And this is a good thing because perhaps you have heard many times how in developing countries, some innovation and technical solutions are being installed by some other companies or transnationals, in particular in the field of traditional knowledge, etc., because they are not properly protected. So one of the first results is that you can see an increase in the national filing of patents. Second, because we are kind of accompanying the process, we are teaching them how to draft the patent application, we are teaching them how to prosecute their patent, which is the best way to file, whether file nationally and then internationally, or from the very beginning if the solution is very strong and there is possibilities of commercialization in various markets, that from the very beginning you can ensure your patent protection in those markets. And for that we have been kind of having a very heavy, I should say, calendar of capacity building creation. It's very sui generis because we combine, it's a multi-modular kind of curricula. We combine not only distance learning, we combine in situ seminar. So WIPO have been going to all those countries and have been organizing training seminars in those countries for the members of university, research institution, technological parks, etc., etc. You can see it because of the participation of TISC staff in our distance learning courses. 26%, almost 30% of all our distance learning courses participants comes from these 750 TISC centers. So, in a nutshell, those are the major achievement. We produce every year a national annual report. In fact, the report will be published next week because it will coincide with a committee we have in WIPO on IP and development, and we will launch a report 10 years of the TISC program, because this program was launched in 2009, and I think you can have access to this report through our WIPO website.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, and also I invite you at the end of the room. There are like publications on each of the points that you have addressed in your presentation. But with that, and before taking one more question, I would ask Stephanie maybe to elaborate more on the TFM. Please, Stephanie, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So the TFM, the Technology Facilitation Mechanism, is it's basically composed of three elements. One is this very forum. The STI forum is part of the is a mandated part of the TFM. The online platform that we're developing is another part, and the third is just the kind of the advisory people. So that would get to your question of who could you call or who could someone call. There's the 10-member group who they've been moderating the sessions of the forum, and then there's the interagency task team, the IATT, and that's comprised of 42 UN and other agencies. So that's a lot of people that could offer assistance in various science, technology, innovation areas. But the short answer is that you could contact our office, me or one of my colleagues in DESA, and the sort of co-convener of this forum is also UNCTAD. So those are kind of the focal points, but the whole UN system has people who are committed to these issues and who can offer support. So.
Thank you, Stephanie. And one of the 10 members is from Japan, right?
Yes.
Dr. Nakamura, yes. We have, I think, we can take one last question from the Secretariat of the South-South Cooperation Division. Please, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ola. My name is Grace Huang. I'm the Deputy Director of UN Office for South-South Cooperation. Thank you very much for your presentations. My question to WIPO for Alexandra is, you know that the UN system, we are also working towards establishing a global knowledge sharing and partnership brokering platform, South-South Galaxy. Galaxy meaning that we would like to connect all the stars rather than replacing any of those. One amazing star is WIPO, actually. Especially we can learn a lot from your various platforms, for example, also your match. Now, hearing your presentation, I learned so much details about the different platforms, different purposes, and maybe different thematic focus. However, my question would be, you have WIPO Match, which seems to take data, information, knowledge, and beyond that to service, to partnership. Is there a possibility, or is it desirable or even feasible to integrate those platforms in a way that you can serve your clients in a more, like efficient way? What's your view on that? And so that's my first question. My second question is to Stephanie. I know you have walked a long journey since the mandate starts 2015 and 16, the conceptualization, and then you set the challenge of it takes so long to actually launch the platform. Is you have a really great ambition, which is very welcomed, I think, to reach the fish farmer and the negotiator even in New York. Such a scope, have you ever thought about different strategies to reach out to different users rather than having them all packed in one go? Or do you think that ambition would take you even more years to partially achieve, and that time cost might not offset of having some platform up running? And so what's your view on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Alejandro a minute and Stephanie a minute and a half. So.
Yeah, in fact, we call the integration you are talking about is what we call WIPO Knowledge Network. We are just building this network with different platforms, and WIPO Match is one of those platforms. But all of them, the main purpose is to integrate all of them in what we call WIPO Knowledge Network, also taking into account always the strategy behind this network, which is the conversion of data into information and information into knowledge.
Stephanie, one last word to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I think it's a very good one, and the answer is yes. I think we will be rolling out the platform in phases. I think originally we had very high ambitions, as you say, and thought that maybe a grand launch of the entire platform with all of the different elements, different languages, including some machine learning aspects, that would have been preferable in some ways. But I think practically speaking, and trying to get some of the services and the resources out there, I think it's a good idea to do a phased launch. So we're hoping that we will be able to do some of the more straightforward, maybe linking to these existing resources that might be useful, maybe starting with some policymakers or the sort of our more usual audience and networks, and then moving into more targeted services for small business owners and the organizations that support them in countries. So yes, I think it's definitely part of the plan, is to roll it out in phases.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Actually, the Galaxy, as I understand it, which is it's a platform developed under the South-South Cooperation Division, has some elements of commonality with the online platform. So sometimes I was wondering to what extent those two platforms will talk to each other, because the online platform is focusing on sustainable development, but will probably have particular focus on the South, and I think that's also is the focus of the Galaxy. So maybe we can have separately a discussion for at least us to understand how to what is the difference, because there is discussion with DESA on WIPO match, and I know also there's a discussion with your colleagues on integrating WIPO match on your respective platform. With that, I should like to first thank very much our distinguished speakers for their time, for their intervention. I thank very much Alejandro. He's all over the world helping countries setting up TISCs, and I very appreciate that he was able to pass by New York while on mission in Latin America to share with us the latest development in this area. And I also would like to thank you very much, Stephanie. You're very busy with the STI Forum. Nevertheless, you still found time to come and talk to us on how relevant our work at WIPO could be to the online platform as you are thinking its architecture and the ultimate groups of beneficiaries. I should like to thank you very much for being present here during your lunchtime, and also for your engagement and constructive discussion, actually, that will make us think more on how we will take our respective programs further, develop them further. And with that, I wish you a lovely afternoon and a good and interesting meeting and the continuation of the STI Forum. I also finally take this opportunity to thank very much my colleagues at the WIPO New York office, Mrs. Nadezhda Dorego, and my colleague Willard Nioni for facilitating our presence here today. Thank you very much. Thank you.